I just had my last service in Marmouth. I'm driving home. I'm actually pulling out of the parking lot right now. I've never done a driving kind of video, but anyway, thought I'd just make a couple remarks just about life in general. A little bit of get to know me type of video, I guess. I'm actually a science and math teacher at the local high school. I teach 8th grade Algebra 1, and I teach biology, physics, chemistry. At the moment, that's my courses. I've taught everything from junior high science up through high school, and I've taught most maths from, 8th grade math up through dual credit calculus. That's what I do for a job. This preaching thing is just something I do. I usually just fill in at my own country church, but for the past month I've been filling in at this church here in Marmouth because the pastor's been away on a tour? Something. Anyway, he's been traveling to Israel, and just kind of seeing the sights, I guess. I've got a truck ahead of me. I'm not real sure what he's doing, so I'm going to hold back a little. Anyway, so I'm driving home. It was my last Sunday in Marmouth, and now I'm back to my regular life and not filling in anymore. Supposedly he'll be back. It's been nice to come over here and just see a different group of people and get a chance to develop a sermon for a week. Now, since I'm doing a whole big get to know me kind of thing, you might be able to tell I'm driving a little bit older car because that's what I drive. It's a 2000 Toyota Camry. I like my fountain pens, but I don't. I probably spend too much money, but I don't spend as much as it might seem like I would spend for somebody who likes fountain pens. I try to live reasonably frugally, not as frugal as I should, but I try. I live in southwestern North Dakota. It's a very rural area. In fact, my school district where I teach is about the size of the state of Rhode Island. We only have about 450 students, K through 12. So they're coming from about over 1,000 square miles because there's a couple one-room school districts that feed into us, around us. I'm just kind of wishing right now I could see that you can't see a thing that's out around the car. I'm driving through the Badlands right now, and it's just gorgeous. So I'll have to figure out how to get some pictures of that, and maybe I'll pull over. It's North Dakota. Maybe I'll just pull over at some point here, and after this truck figures out what he's doing, maybe I'll take a few pictures. Yeah, here we go. He's pulling off. This must be where he lives. That's why he's not driving right. Anyway, where was I? As far as fountain pens, I got into fountain pens back when I was in 4th grade. My family got a catalog in the mail. It was actually a pen catalog. Whoops. And I was looking through it and drooling over it. And of course, as a 10-year-old in 4th grade, what are you going to be able to buy? Not a whole heck of a lot. I finally realized that I had 2 pens that I could afford. I could afford either a Parker Vector or it was some kind of a Schaefer. Anyway, I liked the looks of the Parker pens. The one I really wanted was a dual fold. I still remember that. But I ended up getting the Parker Vector because that's all I could afford as a 4th grader. And I used that pen pretty regularly up till high school. I finally bought a Cross fountain pen in high school. But anyway, back to the Parker Vector, a couple things disappointed me about it. One was it wrote really wide. Now I know it was the cheap paper I was using, because I was using the cheap Mead notebooks, and bleh, that's terrible paper. I'm going to pause here just a second. I think this looks like a good spot to just get out of the car. I'm going to pull into this approach here. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to pull off here. I'm going to pull up further up the hill here. We'll just look over the landscape. Anyway, I bought this Cross. I was talking about the Vector. I didn't know it at the time, but I was writing on really cheap paper, and that's part of why the lines looked so fat. The other thing I discovered right away is I wanted a built-in filling mechanism, and of course I didn't have that with a Parker Vector. I didn't know there was such a thing as a converter, so I used cartridges for many years. I discovered I didn't like the blue Quink, because that's what came with the Parker Vector. But the black I actually used black quink up until just a couple of years ago when I discovered the Noodler's brand and finally truly branched out. So I bought this cross pen in high school. It was okay. It wrote more narrow. Whoops. Oh well, I guess I'm not paying attention. I'm talking to you. I'll pull off up here in this other approach. This might be a better view anyway from up here. Anyway, I bought this cross when I was in high school, and I really liked it. I liked it at first, but as it turns out, metal pens just aren't my thing. They're slippery. The crosses are kind of skinny. The pen itself is skinny. I'm just looking. There's a spot here. Kind of a letdown. I expected something more. I did get a converter with it, which was nice. I bought my first bottled ink, so I was using quink. That was what I used up until, like I said, just a few years ago. So I pulled off here. I'm going to hit pause and then restart. I'm just going to do a quick filming of, so you can see kind of what this area is like. And you could probably tell it was pretty windy there. I don't know how any of this is actually going to turn out. Old car that's not real quiet and windy. I'm driving and I'm talking to my iPad. I don't know if I'm going to talk the whole way home. So there's just not a lot around here. I like it though. I just like the wide open spaces. I live not really in the Badlands. I kind of live outside the Badlands, but it's pretty where I live too. It's very hilly. There's actually a forest just a short ways north of me. One of these days I'll have to take you out to my church, show you my church. That's, I love my church. That's beautiful. I guess I didn't show you the Marmouth church, but that's not my regular church anyway, so I suppose, you know, you're not going to get much out of that anyway. But anyway, I was telling you about my fountain pen experience. I bought this this Cross, is it a Century? Back when I was in high school when I got my first job. And I was pretty excited about it because it looked like a nice classy pen, and now I have the money to afford it. And I wrote with it off and on through the years, not a lot. Then when I got out on my own after college, I bought a Parker, I want to say Insignia, but I won't swear to the name. Anyway, some kind of a Parker. It had a rubberized grip and kind of a marbly red finish. It wasn't cheap when I bought it at Walmart, but that actually became my primary fountain pen up until just a few years ago when I thought, you know, I still want a fountain pen with a built-in filling mechanism. And I was getting real serious. You know, I'd kind of gotten out of novel writing for a long time, which, by the way, that's something else I haven't mentioned. One of the things I started doing way back as a little kid, which may be why I got into fountain pens, is I was writing novels. It started in 3rd grade. I was watching the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, actually. And I don't remember which ghost it was, but anyway, I realized I liked one of the ghosts a lot better than I liked any of the heroes. And that got me thinking, well, you know, why don't I write my own thing where I can control how it ends? So I would write, you know, at first it wasn't 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, but it was some kind of a ghost thing. And then I started writing a Doctor Who knockoff, which I called The Time Traveler, who he traveled in a grandfather clock instead of a police box. Then in middle school, probably, I started knocking off Star Trek. Instead of using the Enterprise, it was called the Stingray, and they had, you know, a captain and all that. The captain was the hero. I made some of the other characters more important than the captain, but because even then it kind of bothered me that the captain was always the one in Star Trek that went down to the planet. So I started writing my own where he didn't. He stayed on the ship the way it would be in real life. But anyway, That's how I was using the fountain pens all the time. I tried a Twin Peaks knockoff, and then sometime in high school I finally came up with my own thing. I created the universe that I now use, an empire called the ACD Empire. It's very poor, big difference between rich and poor in the empire. A lot of planets are very primitive, and I just tend to write about the poor people. I don't know why, but I do. And so I've just basically been, since then, developing the government. I've written 9 novels set in this universe. I don't know if, well, I know they're crap. I'm right now doing the 3rd draft of number 10. This is the first one I felt good about. For all I know, it's still crap, but it's not as bad as the ones I've written before. So I'm hoping maybe it's a little bit better. Anyway, that's what I write, and I'd given up on it for a while after novel number 9. I just thought, wow, I'm just a horrible writer. Why bother? Spend your efforts on something else that you can do. Well, I don't know, I guess it's something about writing, it just gets in you, and I can't not write. So, this idea had been in my head since I was 14 years old about writing about shipbreaking, only with spaceships, because I write science fiction, and I decided to start it, but I went a different route with it. Well, while I was going a different route, that whole I want a fountain pen with a built-in filling mechanism came back, and I discovered the Noodler's Nib Creeper, which fit the bill perfectly. If you've been paying attention to my reviews, Nib Creeper is not my favorite model. I really like the Noodler's Conrad, though. I love Noodler's inks. I have more pens than the Noodlers now, but I have a sickening number of pens, a sickening number of inks. I still prefer black ink, but I use a lot of other inks for fun or for just writing notes or writing letters to people. I mostly use my black ink for writing my novel. So I write first draft with pen and then I type. And anyway, so I've written the 3rd draft of this novel now. I'm working on typing it, as I said, because I was stupid and I wrote the 2nd draft by hand, but I should have just started typing. You learn. I'd never been happy enough with a novel to actually do a 2nd draft before, so maybe that means something. I don't know. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. I just got done giving a sermon. I don't know, I'm a little sick, I think. So I apologize for that. I always edit it out when I film my reviews if I clear my throat too much. But anyway, I usually, there's something in my head that gets me started. Like this time it was shipbreaking. That was in my head. And then it's like the idea has to sit in there and percolate for a while. And then all of a sudden, everything just kind of comes together, and I'm like, okay, there it is. That's my story. I'll come up with characters and settings and all that good business. And what I used to do is I would just start writing, and that's why I have 9 crap novels written. What I decided to do this time is I just did a lot of writing. Oh, now we're passing where I normally would turn north to go to my church. I was almost tempted to go north and show you my church today, but there's a train just kind of parked in the tracks there. So, yeah, it's out in the country, so I guess they don't care if they block the tracks. So we'll just keep going. Anyway, so I thought with my novels, this time what I did is I wrote all these thoughts down first. I wrote down, like, plot ideas. I talked to people, because I used to just, the plot would come as it came, and I'd just write it down, and, oh, maybe I'll make it make sense in the 2nd draft, but no, that never happens. So, wrote it down, I wrote an outline, I wrote a 2nd draft of the outline, and then I finally set pen to paper. And I'll tell you, now I'm in the next town. It's kind of amazing. These are these 2 little towns between here. The town I was just preaching in, 15 miles, and now we're in the next town, which is kind of almost equally between my town and the town where I was preaching. This town, you have to slow down to 45, even though the town is kind of off to the side of the road, but whatever. I like this town, actually. I don't want to say that too loudly, but it's, no paved streets, but they're all scoria. I like the old school. It's abandoned now. They all go to school where I teach, except for the elementary. But it's a nice, well-kept town. Yeah, back on the writing thing. So back on the writing thing, what I do is, so after I was able to write the novel with an outline there. I was able to write the novel in just a couple of months. Usually it would take me years. Now where I'm having trouble now is the editing part, because I hate typing. I would so much rather write, and that's really making everything just go slow. I think once I get this draft typed onto the computer, I'll be happy again, and I'll be able to go back to typing or back to editing by hand, and retyping my little bits. Like I already decided one scene has to get moved to another chapter, and little things like that. Give a little more emotional impact. So whatever you do, just learn as you go, and it's taken me till my 10th novel to figure this out. And who knows, I may have to write 10 more novels before I finally write something good enough to publish. But yeah, pretty happy. I like it. At the third draft, I'm starting to get sick of a few things. I really want to start the next novel, because I actually got 3 novels planned now. So when I get really stuck or frustrated with this one, I'll often do some planning or note writing for the other 2 that are planned as sequels. But anyway, I hope by fall, that's my goal. Before school starts this fall, I want to have this novel typed and be into my 4th or 5th draft. I am learning. I'm learning a lot of the things that other writers will have figured out by now, because I've never done them before. I've written 9 novels before this one, but I've never edited one or rewritten one. So I'm learning all new how to do that. And I hope it turns into something, because I'm really kind of excited about it. I'm enjoying Ian. He's my main character. I'm enjoying some of the people around him. I'm enjoying the shipbreaking. I'm going to be sorry. The next 2 novels, there might be a scene or 2 around the shipbreaking, but it doesn't involve the shipbreaking. So we're kind of coming up with new settings that might be cool. One of the settings I've been thinking about lately, if you've ever heard of Kowloon City, that was outside Hong Kong, and it's torn down about the time I graduated high school. But it was kind of haphazardly built, kind of by accident, without any kind of regulation or whatnot. And it was the most densely populated area on Earth. And finally the government of Hong Kong said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And they made everybody move out, and they tore it all down, and now about all that's left of Kowloon City is a couple foundations and a park. But you look at those pictures, it's seriously worth Googling. One, I don't know if I could live there. I'm claustrophobic, and oh my gosh, is that a claustrophobic place. But second thing is to realize that all these people with kind of minimal government made that haphazard thing work. And that's really amazing. So I would like to incorporate a place like that into one of the sequels. I'm not 100% sure which one. And I'm thinking about it. The other thing I want to do is give Ian some kind of closure. He has, when you finally read novels number 1 and 2, you'll see it. He has issues. By the end of novel 1, he's not quite sane anymore. He's functional, but he's not all there. And he's got issues because of stuff in his genes. He's crippled. He's definitely got problems. And I'd like to get him some kind of closure by the end of the 3rd book. Some sort of happy ending, because I just don't see, at the moment, I don't see Ian going beyond 3 books, except maybe as a secondary character. These 3 books are about Ian, but then it's going to be time for me to start working on a few of the other ideas I have. So I think I could keep writing forever. Ideas, like you read about a fungus, and ideas will come to me. Right now I'm driving through what used to be a town, because all these towns were put up in North Dakota so the train could stop and refill water. Now this is one of those towns. Well, there's nothing left. You wouldn't know there was ever a town here, except there's a grain elevator and 1 or 2 abandoned abandoned buildings. It's empty. North Dakota, they built the towns too close together, honestly. If they would have built them further apart, then the towns could have developed a little bit better. Every town had to have a school, and of course it was a transport thing. That's just the way things were back then. If we were settling North Dakota now, it would go differently. But I'm heading into my own town soon. I'm running out of things to say. I might edit this video a little bit. It really does take this long for me to drive from the church where I was preaching over to home. And I started kind of in the middle of town when I was pulling out of a parking lot instead of right away. So, and I don't do this every week, Of course, my country church, a little bit closer than the church where I was preaching, but half of the trip is on a gravel road. So it probably takes even longer to get to my country church, even though it's closer, because I don't drive as fast on a gravel road, because that's a good way to go, shoop, especially on some of the turns. And right now, I'm pretty sure, with the rain we've had, and the water in the soil and stuff, the roads are pretty rutted, I'm sure. They've got some oil traffic, because there's now an oil well up by my church. That was interesting. When they were doing the soundings, they kept landing the helicopter right by the church during the service. And poor Terry couldn't talk over it. I was glad I wasn't the one doing the sermon then. But I have noticed, like when we do things outside, like we do our Memorial Day service, we'll walk to the cemetery after church and decorate all the graves. I have noticed that the oil traffic will slow down, even though we're out in the cemetery. If they see us outside or they see the cars or anything, they slow down as they go by the church, so it's not as noisy and it's not spreading the dust everywhere. So I really appreciate that. I don't know what else to say. Like I said, I'm probably going to start rambling about a little bit of everything, but I just thought, I don't know, I brought the iPad with me. I was going to listen to music, but I just got inspired as I left the church to do a short little video where you get to know me. And I know if I'm in my house with the camera set up in the tripod, I'll get all nervous. I'll need some kind of outline like I have with the pens, so I know what I'm going to say. I just kind of figured in the car, even though you might not be able to hear as well, I might be a little more comfortable talking. Of course, when I get home, I may discover you can't hear a word I'm saying, because I don't really know where the microphone is on that. I don't know how good it is anyway. So, yeah. Guess how many cars I passed? I always wave at cars when I pass them. Even with all the oil action, I've passed, what, 2 cars? I think 2 cars. I see one ahead of me now. He must have pulled out of one of these side roads, because I'm not going that fast. I'm not a real fast driver. But I'm heading into town now, so there's getting to be more traffic. But here in town, I really do, not that it's that big of a town, 1,500 people, but I really do need to pay better attention in town. So I think this is the time to say goodbye. And so if you listen this far, congratulations. You're really dedicated to listening to boring people talk about themselves. So I thank you for listening. We'll see you later. Well, I stopped just to see a place that is opening, just to see what it's like. It's okay, but it got me thinking, because I knew everybody in there. Sometimes I'm asked why. We won't talk about what just happened there. Sometimes I'm asked why I would live in a place like this, and the truth is, I could get a job somewhere at a larger school where I'd teach physics full time. There'd be a lot more around. There might even be a fountain pen store or whatnot. But I really like my small rural town. I like the fact that I know everybody. I like that I can keep track of the kids, what happens to them after they graduate. I teach the kids several years in a row, so I really get to know a lot of them. I get to see them grow up. I get to, well, not to the point of teaching parents yet, children of students yet. But sorry to say, I'm getting close. But I just, it's a much deeper connection, I think, than I would feel. And I always feel lost in a city whenever I visit them. Even the cities here in North Dakota, which aren't much, it's fun to go there, But then it's always a relief to, once I get outside the city limits, I can breathe. So I see myself as always being in a small town. And yes, now I'm about to talk while driving through town, but I don't think there'll be too much traffic around. If there is, I'll just stop talking. But this is where I think I'm going to end up. If I end up leaving this small town, it's going to be to go to another small town. I just don't see myself going to a city anywhere, even like a Bismarck or a Fargo. They're okay to visit, but don't ever make me live there, please. I just know the businesses. I like the fact that this town is small enough. It's big enough to actually have a main street. It's isolated enough to have a main street. People don't just drive out of town to get stuff. But yet it's small enough I can walk everywhere. I know everybody, people know me. And it actually kind of holds you accountable. In a big city I might think, oh well, so I go to the bar every night, who's going to care or know? Well, here, everybody knows. It kind of keeps you accountable as a teacher, as a role model. Kids know you're not just, whether you're talking the talk and walking the walk, or whether you're just putting on a big show, or if you're a hypocrite. Now they know in a small town. I suppose in a bigger town, you've got that personal connection too. I'll admit that there are things, I think the camera has slid at some point here. Sorry about that. There's things in a big town I know I would really like that would really make my life better. There are things about small town living that just make me crazy. But yeah, if I do that again, I think I end up cracking the screen. I don't know how. Well, I was so successful before because I was out on the highway and not stopping and turning all over the place. Because the iPad is just sitting up in my passenger seat. But anyway, I'm almost to my house now. And yeah, I'm satisfied. I own this house. It's a small house, 672 square feet, but I really like it. It fits me, fits my fountain pens, and more importantly, I can afford it. It is not too much house. It's easy to heat. It's the right amount of room for me. The only time I wish it was bigger, really, is when my parents come visit. I wish there was a place for them. So now I really am home, so we'll talk to you later.